Corner. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a brush lettering tutorial I'd like to show you today. I have a passion for art, for hand lettering, for God's Word, and I just want to share what I know with you all, and I hope that somehow through this channel you'll be inspired. My passion for brush lettering started back in 2016. I started to see all this really pretty calligraphy, all this pretty lettering, bounce lettering, and I thought that looks like fun. And then I started seeing books at the bookstore and these art tutorials, and I thought that looks like a lot of fun. And so in 2016, I broke my hand, my dominant hand, and I was like, okay. And 9 weeks later and 4 weeks of therapy, I was able to pick up my pen again, and it's actually really good therapy or exercise for your hand. So yeah, this is I get lost in this some days, and it's just really relaxing. And I'll turn on some music or just to go along with the mood of wanting to just chill and relax. And sometimes it's just making these basic strokes, and these strokes are the foundation of brush lettering. If you can master this is so easy. You've got it made. This is, even if you've been doing it for a while or you just started, this is always something, life gets in the way of things, and there are weeks or something that go by where I haven't picked up my pen, and I'll go back to the basics just to warm up. So what you're going to need for this is these worksheets, which I will link in the description. These are free, no charge for these. And you're going to need tracing paper. This is Canson tracing paper. I like Canson. Any smooth tracing paper, not all tracing paper is created equal. I did buy some from Amazon that turned out to be just tissue paper, like the kind you would wrap gifts with, which is fine. You can still use that. But if your pen is new and it's really juicy, it will tear the paper. And there's two sides of that tissue paper. There's the shiny side and the not so shiny side. You want the shiny side to write on. The other thing you're going to need is this Tombow Fudenosuke pen, or any small tip brush pen will work. If you happen to have a light box that you can use, that'll work. That's great. I have a light box that plugs into my desktop, and if you're using a light box, you'll need your brush stroke worksheet, and you're going to need paper, plain old paper. Well, not plain old paper, plain old good paper. This is 120 GSM, and you think for a ream of paper, for $10 for a ream of paper, that's expensive, but you're getting 500 sheets. Now, I've priced marker paper, which you can still use in the art stores and Michael's, and it was just a small pad for $18.99. So whatever your budget affords, or whatever you prefer to work on, you might just want to buy the pad in the store where it's bound. That's okay. Or I don't know how much it would cost to have a few sheets of this bound at an office supply store. You can always do that. That is an option. Okay, so why don't we get started with practicing and learning brush strokes. So what you're going to do is lay your tracing paper over the worksheet. And how you hold your pen is going to be unique to you. Make sure that your elbow is supported it will help so much if you can do this supported. And typically you want your pen to be perpendicular and at a 45-degree angle to the paper. Your paper can be tilted. There's some people that don't tilt their paper. You know, it's whatever is comfortable for you. And if you're left-handed, I will link a description to a video from someone who is left-handed, and it can be done. Don't worry, it can be done. If you are, regardless if you're right-handed or left-handed, your pen cannot be here. It has to be here. You're not gonna get the thin strokes and the thick strokes by holding it this way. So, what you need to do, and it's really simple, but you need to be mindful of where your pen begins and where it ends. So start at that very top line and come all the way down to that baseline. Take your time. There's no rush. You don't have to complete X amount of lines in X amount of time. Put on some nice music and be really mindful of where you start and stop. These are the foundation strokes of brush lettering, and these are great to go back to if you haven't been doing this for a while, or you know, there's weeks that go by and I don't pick up my pen. And this is just a great warm-up. Even if you're starting out, you need to warm up. It's like exercising any kind of muscle. And instead of moving your hand, move the paper. So, okay, so you get the idea. That is the downstroke. Downstrokes are always thick. Now the upstroke, same hand position, however it's comfortable in your hand. You might have to try it a different couple of ways. That's fine. The upstrokes are thin. And once again, you're just using the tip of your pen. You're not applying much pressure. And be mindful of where you start and stop. Thick stroke down, thin stroke up, and light pressure on this upstroke. You know, not everyone is going to be perfect. That's okay. That's why you practice. And then the challenge stroke is thick stroke down, thin stroke up. Thick stroke down, thin stroke up. Thick stroke down, thin stroke up. Just like that. Okay. So that is page 1. Now this next stroke is called the upstroke. And once again, you want to be mindful of where you start and where you stop. And what helps me a lot of times is if I count. So if I go 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 1 1,000, this is where I start to ease up on my pressure and come up for that thin stroke. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 1 1,000, 2 1,000. And don't be afraid to push down on that pen. You're not going to hurt your pen. The only other thing I recommend is occasionally picking up your pen after every few strokes and rotating it so that you get even wear and tear on your pen. Okay. And a lot of times what I like to do is when I'm freehanding, I like to put it over another oh, look, that, see? Not too shabby. Okay. So the next stroke is the underturn. No, I'm sorry, it's the overturn. So thin stroke up, thick stroke down. Mindful of where you're placing your pen, where you lift up, and where you press down and stop. So 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 1 1,000, 2 1,000. You know, whatever works for you. If it's something else that you want to repeat to that beat, that's fine. Okay, so this next stroke can be a little tricky. It's kind of like an S. And you'll use this a lot with the M's, the N's, and H, U's, W's. And once again, mindful of where you start and stop. This is about start midway between that dotted line and the bass line. Thin stroke up, thick stroke down, thin stroke up. So what you want to do is you want to get that muscle memory in. It's a little thick there. Mindfulness. Okay, so we have this challenge stroke. And it's actually not as hard as it looks. Start at the bass line, thin stroke up, thick stroke down, thin stroke up, thick stroke down, thin stroke up. Ooh, it's a little shaky. When I've had caffeine, my strokes can be a little shaky, so be careful if this is, you know, right now if it's just practice, but if you're doing something that's, you know, for somebody else and you want to give it away, you might want to rethink when you have your caffeine. So thin stroke up, thick stroke down, thin stroke up, thick stroke down, and then up again. Oops, a little off there. Thin stroke up, thick stroke down. See, not every one of my strokes are going to be perfect. But let's try and end on a good note. There. Okay, so that are those strokes. And the more you do this, the easier it'll get. Okay, so we have this loopy stroke. This would be like an ascender stroke. And you'd use this on your D's, H. So it's thin stroke up, thick stroke down. Thin stroke up, thick stroke down. Thin stroke up, thick stroke down. And I can still go 1 1,000, 2 1,000. Always being mindful where you start and stop. And you don't have to rush through this. Let me see, I need to turn my paper. Always conscious of where that pen is going. Sometimes I get so lost in it, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. Just like that. Now this next stroke is a descender stroke. We use it for P's, J's, Z's, Y's, and it's just thick stroke down, thin stroke up, thick stroke down, thin stroke up. Okay. And their next stroke, I need to use this for a D, an L, and once again, thin stroke up, thick stroke down. And when it's usually about here and here, the 12 and 6 o'clock is when you want to start to lift up on the pressure. Oops, I went a little fast there. Okay, now this is where it can get a little tricky, is making O's. O's aren't always the easiest to do. But once again, start here at the top with that dotted line, thick stroke down, 6 o'clock, start coming up, thick stroke down, 6 o'clock, ease up. I think O's, they look easy and they can be a little tricky. And always be conscious of where you start, where you lift up, and where you stop. Ooh, that was bad. Ah. Okay, and we're moving on. This is our last page. It's a little bit trickier. I saved the hard stuff for last. And this next stroke is like a backwards O. Instead of starting and coming down on the left side to make that thick stroke, you're going to start at the top, come down on the right side, lift up, and then come up with the thin stroke on the right side, left side. So thick stroke down on the right, thin stroke up on the left. This is not an easy. This is not easy. Some people have, can get it right away. Others, like me, it takes a while, and that's okay. It's why we practice. Okay. Now this next one, you're going to use this stroke for like the lowercase b's and p's and s, and it's much like the backwards O, because you're going to start with a small tail, thin tail. When you come up to 12 o'clock, thick stroke down, 6 o'clock, ease up, and then just loop it. Kind of looks like a 2. I think it's a little bit easier than making that backwards O. And now if you're really up for the challenge, you can put that, all of what you've learned on those previous 3 pages right here. Here's the ascending stroke. And then here's that backward stroke. There's a descending stroke. And when you get into that, back into that thick part, that's a good place to rest. Pick up your pen, stretch your hand, and then pick up right there where you left off and complete your letter. And then S is just thin stroke up, and that number 2. Then thick stroke down and curve. Curvy. The curvy backwards curve. I do recommend picking up your pen when you can. I mean, even here, I could still pick it up, which honestly, ending a stroke in a thick line like that is probably the ideal place to stop, to give your hand a rest. But there, if you have to pick it up, just start where you left off. I usually screw things up when I do that, but you're not gonna, it's gonna be pretty hidden here. You're not gonna be so obvious when you let up in the middle of that stroke. So there you have it. Really easy, really simple. It just takes practice. And let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this. And thank you so much for joining me today, and wishing everybody a very happy 2023.